Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reptile Ramblings. I'm your host, Nate, and joined by my sonorously voiced co-host, Mr. Bryant McDowell.
Hey, Ramblers. We have a good show for you tonight. But
And
before we do that, we have some housekeeping, don't we, Nate?
yes, we do. So, as always, we are being sponsored by Serpentine Expeditions. So, Ian Breland's company. You want to do the read off this time?
Whoa. I just had like major echoing. Hold on. All right. Should be good.
Oh, he's gone. He left us. He left us. Just like Jurassic Park. He left us. The T-Rex is coming. So, hey, you back?
That was weird. It's like it was on a loop. You guys were just kept what was going
Okay,
on?
so
It's still happening.
you check your internet connection?
Yeah, it's the strangest thing. Let's see. I'm hop off again. Just keep on the housekeeping, Nate, real quick.
Okay, so as I was saying, we're sponsored by Serpentine Expeditions, Ian Breland's company. So, if you're looking for a high-quality herping tour company to book your next herping adventure with, I highly recommend them. So, as you can see, pretty nice, slick layout for their website. Always a good sign. Very good, very professional. And let's get down to some of their expeditions. Most of them are sold out. Oh, Ecuador. Ecuador's still alive. So Ecuador for April of next year. Still a go. So if you want to see some of the coolest herps in the Western Hemisphere, if not the entire world, now I know where to go. And if you do decide to go booking through them, use code CK25 at checkout for $100 off of your booking. So $100 is $100. You can't go wrong with using a free discount code you heard from your favorite podcast. That's again CK25 at checkout when booking through Serpentine Expeditions for your next high quality herping adventure.
Yeah, again, guys, in this economy, everything helps. And Ian, quality guy, quality crew behind the company. Check them out.
So, all right. So, with our little bit of housekeeping out the way, Bryant, do you want to introduce our guest?
There is one more piece. So remember, guys, Colubrid Fest, we're like way less than 3 weeks away, roughly September 12th to the 14th. Just go on ccrradio.com or showmesnakes.com. You can get all your info. It's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right. Yeah.
For all you colubrid and colubroid knots, definitely check it out. Nate and I will be there. It should be a blast. We were
Midwest Strong.
Midwest Strong. We were at the inaugural Colubrid Fest last year, and these types of things are only going to get bigger and better as more people are becoming aware and putting time aside to go to them. So definitely check them out.
All right. So, Bryant, you want to do the honors of introducing us to our stunningly beautiful guest tonight?
Well, Nate, I think we cannot make such an intro for such a majestic guest with a majestic mustache, but I reached out to, some would say, the Masticophis master, others could say the Colubrid controller, but what we have on tonight, we have Connor Wardle, native Texan, right?
Yes, sir.
And we're going to dive into some obscure and rarely kept colubrids, along other things. So, Connor, with this somewhat of I'd rather you take away your intro and how you somewhat fit in terms of herpetoculture and herpetology.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just, just like any of you guys, I keep snakes and I enjoy doing it. I like to, I guess my Instagram is naturalist herp, so I try and, set up maybe not bioactive but naturalistic setups for the species that I care for here. Just like replicating what I see in the wild. I used to keep stuff in racks, back in the day whenever I started with the more like Lamprepeltis and Pantherophis stuff. But I caught coach whip back in like 2015 or something like that, out in Palo Pinto County, a little bit west of Fort Worth here. And just kind of took off from there, really dove deep into Western coach whips, your other North American whip snakes, and just through, going out into habitats and finding some of these snakes, come across some other cool stuff, like your night snakes. This is one of my, I don't know if they can see video or not through y'all, but this is a desert night snake here. Kept the Texas night snakes as well. I keep some rough green snakes, which are super cool for me, just because they're like a local native snake, that I just like seeing a piece of my backyard in my house. It's cool. I also have some European stuff that I've kind of recently got into. Every time I try and think of the word, I blank on it. But like when two species from different parts of the world evolve into like a similar niche, that's what I'm kind of going for with some of the European stuff that I'm keeping.
So conversion evolution?
Yeah, conversion evolution, yes, sir. But I'm getting more into a species called the Dall's whip snake, which is they kind of remind me of like a smaller pint-sized Sonoran whip snake, and they're just super cool. And I'm kind of not really like jumping ship from the coach whips by any means, but I'm just kind of getting a little heavier into some of that European stuff that's just super cool and less commonly kept because they're all like, lizard feeders and stuff like that, and nobody really wants to keep a snake that's tough to get started. So I like that puzzle piece of that stuff. So
as I alluded to, you are the Masticophis master, and we're not going to really touch on the racers and the coach whips too much. You've been on various platforms, which I recommend to the listeners to check out as well. But of the commonly kept colubrid genre, you think of Lamprepeltis, Pantherophis, and Pituophis. So I'm curious, in your herpetoculture career, did you ever start with any of those genre, or were you automatically just kind of gung ho about colubrid and Masticophis?
Yeah, so I really got into reptiles through Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout myself. I give back to the program as much as I can. But one of the requirements is you have to own a reptile for a period of 90 days. For the reptile study merit badge, you have to own a reptile for 90 days, track its feeding habits, its growth, shed cycle, stuff like that, or go to a zoo every day for 7 days and document one of those animals there. But so I started with a Chinese water dragon from PetSmart, which was a terrible choice for a first-time reptile keeper. Didn't do well at all. Took kind of a pause there, and then I got into a FFA program in early years or late years of middle school, early years of high school, and we had to have 40 hours of some animal-related field. And because I live in more of a residential area, we can't really like have space for a cow or a pig or whatever. So my dad knew this guy who was also in the Boy Scout program. And basically what he did was he had a large collection of snakes, and we would do educational things at like schools or birthday parties or STEM events, stuff like that. We also kind of bred snakes on the side. And just because I'm a fellow, I think, like undiagnosed spectrum person, because we had that similar kind of TISM stuff going. Hopefully it doesn't offend anybody.
So are all the good podcast hosts.
Yeah.
At least reptile wise.
For sure. Yeah, but one of his things was he just had to have every species of North American king snake or Lamprepeltis and rat snake species as well. So we really, I started working for him, cleaning cages, doing all this educational stuff, and then we started breeding snakes to kind of, make up some of the losses we were having as far as money, which is that makes the world go around, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of set me on a focus of locality keeping, which I try to. That's as much as I can. That remains true today. I'm really focused on, even with these niche species that nobody really cares about. I like keeping it locality pure because that's just how I was brought up and what really excites me. So did that for number of years. Went into high school or college, starting off there, and didn't really. I had to, reduce my personal collection a little bit, which at that point going into college, it was diamondback water snakes, DK's brown snakes, and then like I had a Western coach whip and a few other things. But I just
careful with that DKs. Gabe might rob you.
they're great snakes. They're great snakes. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that some of that stuff was overhyped as far as, your milk snakes. Like, I'm sure somebody's going to blast me for this, but like, kind of thought that like one tricolor looked like all the other tricolors. I mean, the only king snake or milk snake or whatever that really interests me today is the Utah Mountain king snake. And it's just because nobody's working with them and I don't know why. There's probably like 2 or 3 that I know of that are breeding them, but I don't know. There's enough of those snakes being produced already, and I want to just, I like the puzzle piecing, like I mentioned before. Figuring out like the quirks of a particular snake species. That there's not enough documentation on. Like, how do I do this in captivity? How do I get it going reliably on a sustainable food source? And just do evidence-based husbandry as far as like, hey, I want to see these natural things, and kind of go from there to do the best that I can for my snakes. So.
Yeah, and I love that you gravitated towards, or you segued into, keeping obscurity, or having a niche in obscurity, because I think that's why, you do so well on your Instagram and on the podcast you've been. I think that's why people gravitate to your episodes, or the episodes you've been on various podcasts. And I'm great. I'm glad you said that, because with Hypsoglena and even Masticophis coluber, there's such a negative stigma to those genera being kept in captivity. But if you really do, like you said, evidence-based research and whatnot, they're not terribly hard from what I'm understanding, right? Like, especially coluber, they're not terribly hard to keep.
Yeah. Just, I mean, if you want to keep them the way that you keep, your shoebox snakes. I mean, not using that as a derogatory term, but like, some people keep hundreds of snakes in rack systems, and that's just not what these are. You see them in the wild, they're in a field or some edge habitat, looking up out there at the higher, UV periods of the day, higher temperatures, and they're out looking, using their eyes, hunting around throughout the day. And they're just really visual, alert snakes. They need high ventilation, and they benefit a lot from UVB. So I just don't understand why some people put them in rack systems.
It's more of a, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But obviously for different species, especially higher strung, visually aware species like those, you do have to change the parameters. You gotta tweak them a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, just respond to what your animals show you. I kept a coach whip in a rack for a little bit, and it kind of got fatty and a little lethargic, and obviously like had a different demeanor. And I'm like, okay, this isn't working. Let me put it, and at the time I had like a 60-gallon thick aquarium that was awful, just it was a really heavy cage.
Yeah, sounds heavy.
But anyway, I mean that did well for then, but I'm doing more 6-foot PVC stuff now. So
are the doll whip snakes similar to like our whip snakes? Like, are they seem like they're pretty visually aware. They have pretty big eyes proportionally. And
right. Yeah. So they're those, and the Montpelier snakes, I would say, are probably the most similar to our North American, racers or coach whips and whip snakes and all that stuff,
Are you working with Malpolon too?
No, I'm not. I've got some buddies that do, and just like physically looking at the structure of that snake, it seems pretty similar to our coach whip in particular, especially the Malpolon in particular there. But the Platyceps, your Doll's whip snake, the Platyceps genus has like, I don't know, 18 different snakes in it, and they're all from like Mediterranean region, and then they expand east into like the Middle Eastern countries. Some of the cooler species that I really have just been nerding about recently in some of these books are like from like war zones, which are going to be tough, of course, to bring in. But to answer your question, This is a Dall's whip snake here in the photo we just brought up there. This is one of my males. And this phenotype in particular, from talking to some other Europeans, may be a separate subspecies. I think the Nautiodon, they have a pretty wide species range, and this subspecies is more like Middle Eastern, at least for the phenotype, more of a slate gray coloration to it. I think I sent you a picture of a younger one that I have. It's got more of like a blue tint to them there, and that's more like the Eastern Mediterranean locality there. But those guys, I mean, they don't get very big. I think like 2.5 to 3 feet, and they're a high UV, warmer temperature snake. They do well in a high ventilated cage, glass. I'm just keeping them in exoterras, and they're doing great. But higher metabolism snake there, more like a garter snake, I'd say, as far as the metabolism, and they're primarily lizard feeders. For whatever reason, the photo, the one you just had up, he won't touch any lizard species I've given him, but he takes rodents no problem.
Huh.
So that's one of those things where I'm kind of, because there's not a lot of information out there on them, I'm kind of doing a little experiment, seeing like the long-term effects of that versus my lizard feeding snakes that I have here, and just seeing what's the better, long-term option for them.
Well, I'm glad. I don't mean to
to
cut in, but I'm glad you're delving into that too, because I've always thought about the effects. Obviously, we know with like species like king cobras, it's evident if you give them a rodent-based diet, they die relatively quickly, or they don't live as long. And things like eastern hognoses, it seems like as more people are starting to keep them longer term, what will be the effects? Obviously, with tricolor hogs, the effect is these are snakes that live 6 to 8 years on a rodent-based diet. So, yeah, that's awesome that you're delving into that and seeing what the longer term effects could be.
For sure. And this is somewhat related, but kind of in the earlier years where I was keeping water snakes, it was kind of standard practice to skin your rodents, because there was a thought that they don't digest hair in particular too well. And so I'm doing that with this Dall's whip snake as well. But I'm also, I'm not feeding that one rodent feeder. I'm not feeding it as regularly as I feed my others that feed on the lizards there. Just keeping what I think is a physically correct, non-obese snake. So
do you think in the foreseeable future we're going to see more, I guess, reptile feeders available in the hobby?
I don't really think so, because it's like there's people that keep, like, to be honest, the lizards I'm feeding are house geckos I catch on my house, or brown anoles. The way that I'm looking at things, I mean, I see people keep anoles as pets, and that's super cool. They're awesome. The source that I get my lizard feeders from is based in Florida, and he does sell natives as well, but primarily he sells established invasives. And I feel better about feeding an invasive than I would, like a side blotch lizard, something native. I think that's okay. And then I'm also, freezing them for a period of time to try and kill as much of what I can that's going on with those, because in Florida it's just kind of a big old fest of fun stuff, parasite wise, all that fun stuff out there. So
it's just so strange, because this area seems kind of like a no-no in the hobby, but they're obviously, behind closed doors, there is a demand for it, obviously, in your case, in keeping these species that kind of have less of a rodent-based diet. But you see the odd ball python that maybe got kinked up during incubation and whatnot, and it's fed off as like cobra fodder. But I gotta wonder, I would think within the next 10 years, I think there will be some options available. I hope. That's my hope.
You mean something other? You mean something other than reptilinks, or?
Yeah. Like whole prey.
Reptilinks are cool. They just, like, I don't know. I've had a lot of snakes turn their nose up to them, but I mean, I'm keeping some really niche species. My night snakes, I start them with scented side blotch lizard. I'll scent a prey item with side blotch lizard from Alterna breeder that lives next, like 5 minutes from me. That he got out of Alterna and he gave me all of his frozen lizards, and I just use those as centers, which is cool. But yeah, I don't know the way that. I guess it depends on the species, I guess, that we would use, because, you see a corn snake being fed off or a ball python and people are like, oh, that's my pet that I have, I would never do that.
Sure.
But it also sucks because, the more readily available smaller fossorial snakes, those are equally as cool to me, and those will oftentimes be, I guess, I don't know, it'd be cool if more stuff was available like that, but people don't think about that because most stuff just gets fed rodents, whether it's good for them or not these days.
I mean, yeah, it's just not mainstream. So
yeah.
But you touched on the fossorial. So what? Because I know you also work with some ringnecks as well, don't you? Yeah, among other things.
Yeah, I actually sent those out.
Okay.
I've got a friend in France. Their page is Insectivorous Snakes. She's super cool. She does a lot of work with those snail-eating snakes.
The Saban?
And then do what?
Saban?
The Apoptura boas or something like that.
Oh, and in Asia, in Southeast Asia. Okay.
Yeah, those as well as she bred DKs a while back, like maybe 10 years ago or something like that. But she's been a good source for me for these whip snakes, or these Dall's whip snakes that I have here now. Basically, I'll bring something in from one of your bigger collectors and just get them established and feeding here. And then by the time that there's a ham or a Houghton or something like that, I'll have them exported over to her, and she does her thing with them there. But ringnecks, they're super cool. I'd love to keep the Regal ringnecks someday, just because those are more of a. I think they'd be a little easier to work with just off their size.
Yeah.
I've kept the northern ringnecks and the southern ringnecks here, and they've been cool. The southerns are a bit, I guess, more open to other feeder sources. Like they'll say chopped up chicken heart, anoles, worms, of course, earthworms. And, if I had access to, a lot of salamanders, I'm sure they would eat salamanders too. And then the northerns, they tended to be like exclusively earthworm feeders. And then the guy that I got the northern ringnecks from, he said in his board in his backyard, there was always ringnecks and marbled salamanders. So I figured they were eating those marbled salamanders as well. But
yeah,
no, they're kind of an
knowledge, the only guy that did work with them, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, they need a little cooler temperatures. They're escape artists. I've had a few come in and they just like totally escape. So
yeah,
what I do with those is I take like the 18 by 18 Exoterras. You have to like silicone every inch of it, but the vent holes up front are fine there. But you can set them up there with like some pothos and some nice like almost eco earth or topsoil type is what I use. Just some cork flats and stuff, and they do pretty well on that. And some of them will even tongue feed, which is fun and exciting. At least for me as a keeper, or short-term keeper. I like the engagement of my animals with me. I used to keep the shovel-nosed snakes. Those were fun. Those been like 2017 since I've kept those. And those were fun. Kind of my first kind of step into experimenting with feeders. Like they ate centipedes for me, scorpions, moths, and then of course your more available feeders, crickets, earthworms, or not earthworms, but people worms and mealworms, stuff like that.
Sure.
They just like every time that I would be in the room, they would like instantly go hide. So I didn't get that kind of interaction with them a little bit. But I had one of those cameras. I used the Wyze cameras, WYZE.
Yeah.
And I've got some cool like photos of them like almost being arboreal in the enclosures, climbing up over the cactus skeletons and stuff. And it's cool watching them eat and stuff like that too.
Are these the ones out of Arizona? I mean, there's so many shovel-nosed type snakes.
Yeah. So the ones that I had were like Southern California area near Borrego Springs. I'm not sure what subspecies that is, but yeah, the Cyanectis species there. I've also kept the variable sand snakes as well in similar conditions. They didn't go over captive husbandry on those, but yeah, 20-gallon long with 3 inches of sand and just some flat hides and stuff like that. So
What is it that makes you tick for these kinds of fossorials? Because yeah, of the snakes, this subsect is like rarely kept. Like small fossorials.
yeah, I think kind of the trend, at least from how I would like to see the kind of the captive world kind of transition is like not everybody can have a 6 foot or 6x4x4 or whatever PVC enclosure, in their house or apartment or whatever. And I think there's some really beautiful overlooked natives that we have here, especially in the fossorial game, or just invert feeding in general, and I think they're easier to house. And I think that, like, if we want to be responsible keepers, we don't want to have, like, photos going out on social media of a retic in a 8 foot by 2 foot, that's not going to look good for someone new to the hobby or someone that's outside the hobby seeing us be like, oh, this is how I keep my snake X, Y, and Z, So if we can do these really awesome job of keeping some smaller snakes, like these night snakes are awesome. If we do that, we'll have a better image, I mean, just it's something new, So I get people have a passion for the more mainstream reptiles. It's just what I enjoy. So
yeah, and I'm about to comment on you, and I don't want other ramblers or herpetoculturists to take this in the wrong way, but you definitely have more of like the European kind of an artisan approach when it comes to keeping, where you're doing things kind of off the beaten path. You're doing things in a different route, which I think hopefully the listeners, the ramblers, will kind of grasp or take away from this, is that you can go in a different manner. You can keep different species as long as you put in the work, which you obviously have done and are doing. So you don't have to pigeonhole to what the quote unquote standard is in our industry.
For sure. I just the biggest thing out of it is I can say like, oh, small snakes are going to be the next thing or whatever, but like, what does it for me is I just like what I keep, you don't got to be like a big time breeder. You don't have to jump in with a million of whatever snake, just, I like backyard herps. I like southwestern herps, that's just what excites me. That's what I do. And then, thank you for talking about, or not really praise, but enjoying what I do. I appreciate that.
Well, it's good that you're not falling for any pyramid schemes, my man. So I think you're already in the running.
Yeah, but just I hop on iNaturalist, and after I read about a snake for a little bit, I'll look at their environment, kind of when they're out seen, or when they're most common, and if it's something that matches, or that first gets me interested enough, and matches my general requirements for my reptile room, why not?
Yeah. And since you have that Hypsoglena out, why not we touch on them? In how many species are you working with, and just overall, what's your fascination with the genus? I personally like night snakes as well. They have a very cool look to them, but you take it away. What fascinated you with them?
Yeah. So oddly enough, whenever I was working for that gentleman that had all sorts of rat snakes and king snakes and stuff, he did have some odds and ends, some Pitchophis, whatever. But in the little hatchling rack, he had 2 Texas night snakes that just the same lizard guy that I talked to now. We just fed him a knoll, stuff like that. But in the picture there, and in my hand here as well, this is my largest female desert night snake. She's from Lincoln County, Nevada. She's absolutely the biggest example of this species I've seen, of really any night snake that I've come across. I've seen some pretty big Texas night snakes. I've kept a few Texas night snakes. I had a San Diego night snake, but just there's been some similar, not really like super younger keepers than me, but just like I'm kind of like halfway. I'm 23, so I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm kind of halfway in between like the people that are the new generation starting in and kind of the more like 30, 40-year-olds, whatever, I don't know, in herpetoculture. And there's a guy. He's super cool. He got a lot of enthusiasm. Cole Burrow, awesome dude. But talked to me a lot about night snakes and had a huge fascination with them. So I sent him my lone female San Diego night snake just because I couldn't get her paired up because I didn't like lose a contact out there. Just it kind of fizzled out with getting more examples of that species. A lot of these Western species, you have to. I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'm sorry, but anyway, night snakes, they're great. I enjoy them. They're one of the first snakes. I was telling Nathan about this. One of the first snakes that I saw out in West Texas. Whenever I went out there for my 21st birthday herping, and I had seen my previous mentor keeping Texas night snakes, and they were doing well there. So I collected 2 out there, and then I was gifted 3 more from another one of my like a second mentor, I guess, that I got a little later in life, and ended up one of those females ended up being gravid, and I incubated and hatched out 2 of these smallest snakes I've seen in my life. Pretty wild. The eggs were like super elongated and like about the thickness of like one of those Dixon yellow, your school pencils, stuff like that.
Oh wow!
Pretty wild. It was a quick incubation, and those babies were fantastic. But
how quick?
Do what?
How quick?
The incubation?
Yeah.
It was like they were laid in like I want to say September, kind of late in the year, and they hatched like in November, kind of shortly after Thanksgiving. So I don't know exact number of days on that, but it was kind of odd, at least to me, that they hatched that late in the year. And for the size that they had, I mean, they really weren't eating for the first couple of weeks. So I don't know if they brumate in like rock crevices until the spring and eat like centipedes or gecko tails or something. I don't know. I've never seen a hatchling coleonyx or your banded geckos. I've never seen how small those hatch out. So maybe they're eating those, I would assume. But anyway, yeah, no, they're just underrated. And I came across, 2 of them at the time out in West Texas. Those are my first 2 that I kept. And they just did great for me. And kind of being on the kind of weird niche end of things, I just wanted to kind of expand the groups that I was working with. But right now, I just have the desert night snakes here. Like I said, this female is from Lincoln County. I've got another female from Lincoln County, and I've got a male from northern Nevada that came from like a lava rock region, which is kind of more of like a darker brown. I think I sent you a picture of him as well. But
yeah. For the ramblers listening, definitely hop on YouTube to see these photo examples and the live examples that Connor's holding. And one way to describe them, and you probably know this as well, Connor, is that I'm on some Arizona and Texas snake ID groups, and whenever you see these guys pop in, for layman that doesn't really know snakes and stuff, they kind of look like rattlesnake mimics, and especially in Arizona, one could get away with thinking of them as like what do you call it, like a pseudo price eye, like a
yeah, a little twin spot. Yeah,
they kind of remind me of price eye a little bit. The twin spotted.
Sure.
Is that the name, twin spotted rattlesnake?
Yeah, especially when they're kind of like offset, not saddles, but the kind of, I don't know, crossbars are the wrong word, but
like blotching. Like
yeah, the blotching. Yeah, the offset blotching like that. Yeah, for sure. They also will. I've got a female that lets me know when she's mad at me. She will fan out her lower jaws too, and kind of get that triangular head, which is kind of cool. But I've never been bit by one. This female here, I am always cautious with. For those that aren't familiar, they do have a prey-specific rear fang venom, kind of like how hognose have that. Obviously targets your desert lizards and red spotted toads. They're known to eat as well. This girl really fuzzy mice, so she could bite me. She's never done it, but obviously washing my hands, because I don't want to experience that prey specific venom. I had a allergic reaction to a hognose bite, and my hand swelled up for like 3 days. So I don't want to.
Oh really?
Yeah. No, I'm not really taking any fencing chances with these guys. For sure. There's a guy in Colorado. It's like Steven something, but he's been doing this he might have graduated and already finished it, but he was reaching out to me a little bit, talking about keeping night snakes because he was looking at the proteins.
I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, and the prey specific venom of night snakes, lyre snakes, and the dry Mobius speckled racers.
Yeah.
And
yes,
I've talked to him a lot about night snakes and lyre snakes to see if, how they're keeping them in the labs, and stuff like that. But they have, at least the night snakes they had collected, have a similar protein build to if he's listening, he's probably going to correct me, but I think it was like a Great Basin rattlesnake. They just have a really poor delivery system. So, she's never shown any signs of biting. I don't really count this as free handling, but it is something to, if you want to keep one, look into your state's law, stuff like that, about, refraying snakes because you want to do everything legally. This is that female will fan out her neck. She's not doing it right now. But this is more of like a blonde. This particular snake was found on a relocation call, and the homeowner thought that it was like a sidewinder because it was just like doing this like weird jumpy spazzing thing that those sidewinders will do as well when you're trying to move them and stuff.
Sidewinder, but this was in Texas, right? Or
no? So this is a desert night snake from Nevada.
Okay.
All three of mine are from Nevada. There. I don't know if you guys know Adam Roth or not. He's a field herper. He also has a decent sized collection, his personal collection as well. But he's gifted me these three snakes, and I'm very appreciative of that. A lot of these Western species, it's kind of it's harder to bring these animals in because there's legal restrictions and state laws and stuff like that as to like the commercial aspect of it, with no one producing them, or no one really, producing them is the right word, no one really working with them too much on the captive side to source animals for projects like this. Oftentimes you either have to go get them yourself or you have to rely on friends to gift them to you with no sort of reward for them in the end, because legally that's not allowed. So thankful that I've got some friends in some of those Western states, and it's worked out for sure.
Yeah, man, networking, making friends for sure. And so you're saying, so you only work with the one species since you sent the San Diego female away? You only work with
those Texas animals ended up with a guy in Florida. His name's Henry Jacobson. Another good dude out there as well. More of a turtle guy, but he enjoys the night snakes as well. Makes his way to Texas, West Texas and stuff for herping quite a bit.
And so you said you've bred at least, the deserts.
The Texas, that I didn't breed them, but a gravid female laid eggs, and I hatched those out. You can find them on my Instagram, Naturalist Herps, looking at videos through there. But yeah, no, I started those on mouse tails and sliced up slivers of chicken heart that were dusted with a little bit of that multivitamin reptile powder stuff. I kind of take that out like every 3 feedings so they wouldn't get like a overdose on vitamins or any weird crystallization, bladder stones or things like that. But if anyone here keeps milk snakes or breeds milk snakes or things like that, that same kind of thing where you assist feed them, and once you get it in their mouth, they just take it down, no problem, and get some weight to them, and they can go on from there.
Start rocking and rolling. Cool. I mean, I've seen itty bitty garters, so I can't imagine how itty bitty these baby night snakes were.
Yeah, similar size, I would say, as far as like right out of the egg. So
yeah, that's tiny. That's tiny. I mean, do you have any aspirations of inquiring and getting more species under your belt, or?
I want to. So the way I see myself now is, I mean, I'm not like a large breeder by any means. I want to make sure my animals are set up and doing well first, and then I'll like selectively breed. I have tried to pair this girl up with my male a couple times, but I haven't seen anything come of it. So I'm okay, kind of with what I've got. As far as within the Hypsiglena genus, the Mesa Verde night snake is very, as far as iNaturalist records, is pretty hard to come by. And if there was an opportunity to work with those, I think that'd be neat, because that's just kind of there's not a lot of information out there about them. And then there's a island off the coast of Mexico, which legally I'd never be able to keep this species, but as far as dream species go, the Cedrus Island night snake is just a beautiful snake, and they've got some striping that goes. So they do that kind of blotched up on top, but then there's some striping that kind of follows from the cheek across like the length of the body, which is just a really super unique phenotype. Pretty cool, and just different, So those would be super cool to work with, but I just have to appreciate them in nature, going out and seeing them one of these days.
Yeah, man. Again, another takeaway: quality over quantity, and also selectiveness over generalness. That's kind of the themes that you're going with, which are great takeaways.
For sure. And I would like to grow the groups that I have. If I can get another male, maybe another female, that'd be great. Ideally, with what I plan to produce, I'd like to have 3.3 of each species. So it's something that I can if I lose an animal, it's not going to be the end of the project.
You're not in crisis mode. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough to start a project and say you're going to do something with 1.1. And with most of these being, taken from the wild, you're going to have, less inbreeding, things like that, new genes, new pairings. And, I could
for sure
have unrelated hatchlings go out, that's the goal, or at least related hatchlings so other people can continue those projects, and have healthy animals.
Yeah. And I had a question. I lost it. Don't worry about it. But so disregarding now the night snakes, I know you've also worked with Trigomorphodon. Am I right?
Yeah. So I had a car wreck a couple months ago, and I had to thin out some of the collection there. I kept Sonoran lyre snakes and California lyre snakes, and I am very bummed that those pairs had to leave. I'm actively looking for more animals to pop up, but I am going to IHS next year, so I'm going to probably road cruise a few and try and get some pairs out there. Those snakes are wonderful, super overlooked. All the people out there that are kind of alternative focused should really take a minute to spend some time looking for lyre snakes. They're beautiful snakes, a little bit more drab in coloration in comparison to an alterna, but they're just super quirky, I would say. Like the hatchlings that I've raised, they do this kind of like a bluff strike that they'll do, but they do like a chuff, or almost not like a bark, but like an audible noise with that
when they strike, right?
Which is super. It's like the breeder I got him from. I was like, "Is everything okay? This isn't like an RI or like a weird like respiratory thing going on. This is normal." And it's like, it's like super super weird, but lyre snakes do that.
I'm going to say, at Kaluberfest this year, I'm going to be on a tight budget, but of the list of things that I would be tempted to get if it's in the right price range, lyre snakes might be on the list. Ever since I saw the Central America one species down in Costa Rica last year, it's like,
those get massive.
Those are, that was a big one. That was full on 4, maybe 5 foot long.
Yeah, that was like rat snake size, Nate. That was an impressive beast.
Yeah, the thing is, when we were first road cruises up, we initial thought, oh, it's that Central American rattlesnake we were targeting.
Yeah.
Second thought, oh, it's a fertile lance. Only then did we ran up on it. Was like, okay, it's something else. So.
Yeah, very strange colubrid. And so again, what gravitated you towards them? Obviously, you don't have none at the moment, but what gravitated towards you with those guys?
They're just a really beautiful snake. Like seeing, I'm blanking on the Instagram names now, but just some of those Western herpers showing photos of those, and the rarity of the Texas lyre snake, at least in the state of Texas, they're pretty hard to come by. That's just, they're on the Texas lyre snakes are on the blacklist here in the state of Texas. So I can keep up to 6, but I can't breed or sell or trade or do anything with them. I would love to have one as a display animal just to get the complete 3 for the U.S. species. But the Sonoran lyre snakes and California lyre snakes were something that I could do something with. Again, I don't know if he wants me to mention his name, so I won't. But there's a popular Arizona keeper and herper that sent me some of his Sonorans.
I think I know.
Super awesome snakes. And I've always heard like, oh, they're tough to get on rodents. Oh, they're tough. They're tough. They're tough. You put in 5 seconds, they're not that tough. All the ones that I got that were Sonorans took rodents fine. The captive bred ones, of course, that I got out of Utah, those were totally fine. Already feeding on rodents. The Californias that I had were a little tougher, but just a little bit of a null scenting, which I can dive into if you want. Did the trick for them, no problem. And as far as keeping them in setups, things like that, what really helps with all of my snakes here, honestly, is kind of taken from the monitor world called a ret stack, RETES stack. I don't know if you guys know what that is or not, but it's essentially
layering.
A layered hide. So you can use like I use stacked slate tiles or ceramic tiles. Some people use plywood, whatever. But you're making these little crevices. I take like a 1/4-inch piece of PVC, cut them up, silicone them to each like one side of each ceramic tile, and I'll kind of stack those so you get like these little triangle little crevices, and that way your animal has a thermal gradient going up in a vertical thermal gradient. Sorry, there, but there's also these tight hides where they can feel secure, and they can get exactly what they want when they need it. And that really worked well with those lyres in particular, because you see them in the wild there in a granite rock crevice, munched down a lizard or something like that. What really drew me to the lyre snakes in particular was a photo of one eating a bat, which I was like, holy crap, that's just nature's metal, and this had happened out, but it was just chance, that I was offered them, and they were wonderful snakes. Now there are some people that are captive breeding those. There's 2 or 3 solid guys. The Sonorans went to a guy named Rob Nemo in Florida, who does a lot of work with helos, and he's a kind of an old school guy. But I'm happy that there was somebody that's going to do something good with him. They're going to not just sit around. They're going to get bred and benefit the hobby. So a couple of years, I'm sure you'll be able to get a lyre snake, no problem.
Oh, sure, man. With these obscure species, just the more people that have them and work with them, obviously, hopefully, the more beneficial will be in the future, as there'll be more and more people to work with them.
For sure.
They are pretty. Also, I'm getting the sense of you're liking these kind of obscure colubris that are almost what you would say like viper mimics. With the Hypsiglena and Trigmorphodon. Because like what you were saying, Nate, you thought it was like either a Central American rattlesnake or I personally liken them to both drops to the lanceheads. They kind of have the same pattern.
Like I said, that was the second thought that ran through our head when we saw it.
Yeah, and so maybe starting with Trigmorphodon, have you seen those guys out in the wild or Hypsiglena?
Not yet. So I haven't really herped too much outside of the state of Texas. And like I said, the Texas lyre snake is very uncommon to find in the state of Texas. They're fairly common in eastern New Mexico. That's where I'm hoping to see them. But no, to answer your question, no, I haven't seen them yet. I've herped in Borrego Springs, but it was kind of the wrong time of year to come. That's Southern California for those that don't know. That was kind of the wrong time of year to come across lyre snakes. But still had a good time out there with some really cool people that I didn't expect to see. So
arid region, that's a really cool little piece of Southern California.
Yeah, those the boulder, like the granite boulder piles, are just wild.
Out of this world.
Like Texas, it's all limestone in Texas. The granite boulder piles are, man. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, touch on that a bit more. I mean, how did that go? What was the cause of you going to Southern California? Was it herp related, or just kind of second-handedly you were herping down there?
Yeah. So my sister, she's a junior now at San Diego State, and we went out there her freshman year for parents' weekend. and kind of linked up with some of those Western friends, that I have that have sent me some stuff, and I've sent them some stuff too. And I got one night of road cruising out there. We came across, it's November, so it's kind of not November. It's September when we were out there, so it's kind of late in the season, to really find much. But as the sun was going down, I came across a few, Scalopris, like your granite spiny lizards, and climbing up on top of these boulders, looking for chuckwallas. It was late in the day, so we really wouldn't find any. But he has this technique where you find the poop, you find the crevice, and then he's got a special way I'm not going to get into to lure them out, because I don't want people, take this and use it for harm, But it was pretty cool seeing all that. But as we were doing some cruising, we came across a speckled rattlesnake, which was super cool. It was stretched out in the road, so not the most ideal way to see one. But that was a beautiful snake to come across, and I got some faux in situ where we kind of moved it off and kind of had it pose up against a bush for us there. I saw my first, I don't know what, I guess California glossy snake, maybe the common name. I don't know what subspecies it was. Maybe a desert or something like that. A DOR, fresh DOR, the kind of coastal phenotype of a rosy boa, a kind of like a purple and blue tint, snake. And then like more sidewinders than you could count. They were just like a dime a dozen. It was wild.
Oh, lucky you, man.
yeah. I got to go to the at the time I was also working for the Fort Worth Zoo, and one of my coworkers set me up with a backstage tour of the San Diego Zoo, which was absolutely insane. Yeah, they're the hub, I guess, for breeding Fiji iguanas. So it was super cool to see that facility and all that. But
what a shame. The Canadians get it all, man. What a shame we can't have them.
Yeah, I mean, they're not very personal, but at least the ones in the zoo setting weren't very personable. There was a pair at Fort Worth that I kind of took turns, taking care of. But yeah, I don't know, pretty to themselves type lizard. Yeah.
I mean, it just depends what kind of keeper you are, but even if they weren't personable, they seem like they'd be a great display animal.
For sure. Yeah, no, they're beautiful lizards. Yeah.
Speaking of Fort Worth, you actually worked at Fort Worth Zoo, right?
Yes. Yeah, I worked there for basically a year and a half. I got two different positions that I worked there. It was one of probably the best job that I've had in my life, and it's just not for the way that I wanted to go with my life. It wasn't a sustainable field to stay in. Unfortunately, that's how all the fun jobs are. But
no kidding.
Yeah, no, I definitely learned a lot. You want to kind of get into that now, or?
I have one more thing to touch on. What about Leptodira, like the cat-eyed snakes? Those, have you ever had a fancy for those?
Yeah, so Leptodira, those in the U.S. we have the northern cat-eyed snakes. They're a similar thing. They're protected in the state because they don't really have a limited range, but as far as the U.S. is concerned, they're not super common. So you can't legally keep them. And honestly, I'd be a little nervous about keeping them because I've heard people getting bit by them. And having some nasty effects with their kind of rear fangness or whatever you want to call it. But that's one of my life list animals there that I really love to come across one of these days. I just got to get more time in South Texas.
I thought so, because I mean, to give the Ramblers kind of a visual, they're kind of like a diesel supercharged kind of Hypstoglina. They kind of have that same body form, even head shape wise. And I've read some herp notes on, I forgot what species, but I mean, it bit a researcher on the thumb, and got real black and purple. So I'm in accordance with you that I'd be a little bit nervous keeping some of those species, but gorgeous and underrated snakes as well. But there's not really many or really any species I could think of in the hobby. I'm here in Illinois, so I go to the Tinleys. I've never seen any species available. Well, again, Illinois, you can't really own any kind of venomous, but I mean, you can still sell
Right.
them. But
Yeah, there's
besides the
there's
point.
a reptile kind of importer that's kind of doing things the right way. It's like the Cold-Blooded Shop, I think, out of
Mhm.
Florida.
I was just on their Morph Market page earlier today.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've
There
been
are some
eyeing
tempting
their,
things there. There are some really tempting things there.
that brown vine snake. It's liked on Morph Market for me. You know, I'm just looking for the right time. But they've brought in those cat-eyed snakes before from like the South American species. There's like, I don't know, like 8 or 10 different species of leptoderia or something like that, I think.
There's quite a few of them, yeah.
Yeah, but they're cool, and it'd be cool to see somebody spend some or put some effort into them. There's just so much out there to to work with, you know.
Yeah, I mean, once you keep diving into herpetoculture, you realize, the world is kind of at your fingertips, so to speak, in terms of, what selectiveness you want to do with species. But, you briefly mentioned rough green, and I seen on your Instagram a photo or video of what was it, a captive? Do you have captive
Yeah, I've
rough
got
greens?
3 of them here. Kind of set them up just how I have seen them before, just by coming across them out in the wild. Just like a kind of forest floor with all sorts of that crappy. Uh,
Leaf litter or
well, yeah, leaf litter, but there's like this vine that's just always a pain in my butt because it's got a little bit of thorns on it whenever I'm hiking around and stuff.
sure.
But yeah, all sorts of climbing material, full spectrum UVB. The room stays warm enough for them where I don't have any heat on them for them there. But they're really cool visually. I mean, they're just a really cool color, and they're really I don't know. They're always like out and active and alert there. And I've done some fun stuff with offering varied prey. I've got a greenhouse in my backyard here, and occasionally I'll get dragonflies that'll fly into it, and I'll just grab those and toss them in, and they freak out. They love spiders too, which is really cool. But outside of that, all your standard, commercial feeders, your crickets is what their bulk of their diet is. Occasionally hornworms just for some extra hydration. They're pretty juicy. And I've got a little cup that I hang in there sometimes with some wax worms, but those are pretty fatty, so I don't really do those too often. But
man,
no,
they're really cool snakes.
they're always out and about, just sitting there basking like that. There have been some kind of more recent captive breedings of those among some of my friends, I guess here around the Central Texas area, which is exciting to see. They're just not a long-lived snake, and a lot of people have issues with hydration with these guys. They don't drink from water bowls, really, so you have to mist them down daily. I do like a light mist to simulate like a dew in the mornings, and then whenever it rains outside, I'll literally take their entire cage and put it outside and just let the rain, the temperature really, or not temperature, like the barometric pressure, that'll help with some of their cycling. And I haven't seen pairings yet, but I supposedly have 1.2. And these are Montgomery County off of one specific county road, which is fun for me, but one of those things that's not a big deal, it's just what engages me, so they're fun. And I think as far as people that are looking for, that first pet, if they're okay with a non-handleable snake, more of like a fish tank type animal, it's a great choice. You're not going to have rodents in your freezer or things like that. So just, something out of the normal you wouldn't really come across or think of, excuse me.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like if you started with and have experience with keeping lizards and whatnot, then these shouldn't be too big of a deal, because it seems like with rough greens, they kind of fall in that gray area, kind of along with Coluber and Masticophis, but to a lesser degree, to where, I've been around the block and I've talked around, older keepers and herpers, and, they said you should see them. They're like a dime snake, they're quite common in the pet trade. Right. And that has lessened to an extent, I think, for the benefit of the snakes. But, they're another one that I don't think they're terribly hard to keep. And obviously, you're keeping them, and you're saying they're not terribly hard to keep. You can
Yeah,
keep them
I've
in
had these
pretty warm
for about a
ambient
year and a half.
and whatnot.
So yeah, long-term captives, they're doing great. I am bringing in some smooth green snakes soon, so that'll be pretty interesting. Definitely a cooler temperature that can't be in this room, but that will be exciting for sure.
Yeah, that genus is so funny. You have one species that took up to the trees and became more arboreal, and you had another one that took to the ground, became more fossorial. It's very strange.
More like a
Right.
brush grassland species.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's interesting with those, whenever I was keeping the DK's brown snakes before I sent them out, I provide UVB for them just because that's the cage that I had for them, whatever. But they climb a lot. The DK's brown snakes, they climb, they'll perch, they'll bash like that. So I'm interested to see if the smooth green snakes will be the same way. I'm going to kind of set them up the same fashion. And then I know one guy that's kept some of them a little bit longer term with some ribbon snakes, and one of those actually ate some like freshly born ribbon snakes, which is pretty cool. I don't know how many times that's been documented, but with as many photos as I see them being flipped with like ring necks, makes me wonder, like, are they eating some of those ring necks out there in the wild too, or is that just like kind of a one-off weird thing,
That's really neat.
Yeah, for sure.
Would have never guessed it. Fascinating stuff, man. Yeah, and so you alluded to vine snakes. It's like obviously you have the rough greens, but obviously you want to kind of get like a big boy version of rough greens and start working with vines, huh?
Right. Yeah. So the brown vine snake, it's I'm gonna butcher this, like Oxybilus aeneus or something like that.
Yeah.
They range into southern Arizona, and same thing. I've always loved seeing photos of them, and then they have this, like, as a defense, where they'll open up their mouth and it's like a big, like, purple black pit, kind of like how a mamba would open up their mouth like that. It's like, hey, I'm getting big, stay away from me. And I've heard of the Chiricahua Desert Museum keeping some animals for a couple years. But outside of that, nobody really keeps them because they pretty much only eat Scaloporus lizards. So if I can get curly tail lizards out of Florida, is that going to be big enough to sustain, one of those animals? Now, I'm not going to go and like jump into like 4 individuals that are wild caught of this species, maybe start with one that's already in captivity, which that animal in particular off of Cold Blooded Shop has been in captivity for at least a month and a half. So it's got to be, doing as good as it can there. But if I can give it a little bit of a better home, and try and see if I can get it going, that I think that would be worth, looking into,
Yeah. And one tangent to touch on, and obviously you weren't poo-pooing racks, they have their place in the hobby, but
right.
With giving your collection, you have more of the naturalistic approach, right? Where you have these,
right.
You set up your you set up enclosures quite well. And one question I was curious about was some of these backdrops, I guess if you call them. Have you done them yourself? Like, have you made some yourself?
These are, so for my night snakes and those photos that I sent you, those are universal rock. They're just foamed in and perched there. Now, if you go through my Instagram and you see some of the lyre snake shots with that kind of more orange backdrop there, that is like more of like it's literally modeled after a photo that I took in Borrego Springs of like a granite rock pile. That was done by a now good reptile friend of mine, Ari Flagel, who built out and designed all the enclosures in the new Fort Worth Zoo building, MOLA, the Museum of Living Art there. He did all the rock work there. And then if you guys have heard about Reptilandia, which if you haven't been, totally go. Posters behind me. Wonderful spot. I love that place. He did all of the rock work there, and like the big, like 40-foot tree, that's in the croc monitor enclosure. That's wild, or 20 or something like that. I don't know. But don't quote me there.
It's huge. It's huge. Regardless.
Yeah, it's huge. And yeah, so he was just looking for, some extra, I guess, cash at one point, and put something on Facebook saying, hey, I'll do, custom build outs if you need me here for a decent price, and I hit him up, and that's where we got to talking, and he did a great job. It's fantastic. I do want to get more into that. I'm just nervous and cautious about, messing up a nice tank that I have, and not being able to fix it. But I just got to take the jump and do it. That's the only way to do it.
Call to action, bro. Call to action. But
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
what
sure.
a great resource and contact. And yeah, I highly recommend anybody that's in the Texas area or even not go to Johnson City and check out Reptilania. The 2025 Carpet Fest, I think they're having it there
Mhm.
again as well.
Yep.
So
I'll be there. Come say hi.
yeah, I don't think Nate and I are gonna make it this time, but I myself am personally intrigued, and maybe one of these days for sure.
Yeah, I definitely want to go. It's just, man, it's hard to swing it with everything else going on.
For sure.
Life, bro.
Got to make a choice, and Koluberfest is just an easier drive. So
Yeah. I'm hoping within the next year or two I'll make a Colibri Fest, and I'd love to bring some kind of wacky stuff that you don't see. So we'll see. I probably won't get a table, but we'll see.
That's the
you just
spirit,
bring it.
man.
You just bring it around. Just have them take it around in the deli cup, walk around the showroom. People ask, "Oh, which table you got it from?" You just tell them a false table, just to confuse them. Kind of table.
Yeah.
It's like, why do people keep coming up saying I have night snakes? I don't have night snakes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Shameless plug, but yeah, I think now is a good time to transition a little bit into a little bit of your herping outing. So you said for your 21st birthday you went out to West Texas, right?
Yep.
Obviously, what is it? Trial by fire, trying to find Alterna and some of the other critters like that.
So, well, my only goal was to go find a red-faced Western coach whip. I didn't want to say Alterna. They're cool. If we come across one, that's fine. But that wasn't like a huge passion for me. I'm a weird goofball. That's fine. But I went out with my buddy Aaron Steele, who he's out of Waco, just a little south of me, and we stayed in Alpine. Yeah, that's my first my lifer, I guess, red-faced Western coach whip. Out of shed, it looked incredible. But we did we road cruised all over. We stayed in Alpine, like I said, did some cruising around there. We went to Sanderson for a bit. We went down to Black Gap, Boy Scout Road. Really had all like the big names out there. We did some day hiking in Marfa, which was a huge mistake because it's just hotter than hell and flat, But I found some really cool whiptail species over there doing that, looking for horn lizards. We stumbled across this railroad and flipped a bunch of ties. Basically, so we were coming off an 18-hour road cruise where we started like in the evening, came through all day. Maybe not 18 hours, maybe more like 15 or something like that. But full night, full afternoon, where we drove out to Sanderson, met up with somebody. We drove down to Black Gap, cruised Black Gap, all this. Decided, what the hell, why don't we just keep going for the early morning stuff? And came across the coach whips. We flipped a Sonora Escapola or something like that, but the ground snakes that are out there.
Yeah.
Cool. There's a beautiful like kind of green tint with an orange stripe down its back. Those are pretty variable. If you haven't checked those out, those are another insectivorous snake to kind of put some attention into. We found those two night snakes that I ended up taking home in that spot there, as well as about 100 yards ahead of us, we saw a Central Texas whip snake, which that was the first species outside of a Western coach whip that I'd kept in the Masticophis kind of genus or family or whatever it is. Obviously caught dust, nothing but dust and grass, but it was a fun little sprint to recharge, and get on with the rest of the day. But not a normal 21st birthday for your normal person, but I mean I've worked food service, so I've kind of been around food and alcohol and stuff like that, and that's not my thing. I like snakes and getting dirty.
I mean, that's why we're all into it, right? We're kind of kind of out of the norm. We're all kind of eccentric in our own ways, especially for liking snakes.
Yeah, one of the other kind of cooler finds that I sent you a photo of it yesterday, but it's a reticulated gecko. We got out of the car in Black Gap, just jumped out of the car, and I just saw this little lizard running by, and it's bigger than a banded gecko, like a normal Texas banded gecko, probably about 4 times like the maybe not weight, but it was a girthier and longer lizard, obviously very leopard gecko looking. And apparently, like, I didn't realize, like, in the moment that was such a special lizard, but I, went and posted it after the trip saying, oh, highlights of the trip or whatever. And people blew me up. Apparently, they only occur on this stretch of Black Gap Road going down to the border. I'm sure, if you've never road cruised Texas, if you're doing that, you need to really stay on the road or the shoulder or whatnot. If you go onto the private land, a lot of times you'll get shot at or something like that. So be careful. Don't trespass. Border Patrol down there is really on it, things like that. But they really only found on this one stretch of road. And this was with the guy that we had met up with in Sanderson, Trey Petty. He's kind of like a naturalist for this West Texas area. That was like one of the first ones he'd seen in a long time. And he, during the busy season, cruises Black Gap every single night looking for Alterna, like for the entire season. It's wild. But so that was a super special find. Unexpected, kind of going into the trip. I didn't really know that species existed. That was super cool.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I mean, Koleonyx, I know Schmitty has kind of made them a little more relevant in other reptile podcasts as well, but they really are a neat alternative to a leopard gecko.
For sure.
That's the species that we have in the hobby.
Yeah, I've kept the Texas and the Western banded geckos as well. They're fun. They're cool little pint-sized leopard geckos.
Yeah, I mean, have you delved? No, go on, my bad. No, go on.
I would say what really the night snakes, the banded geckos, wire snakes, whatever. Like I said, I am in food service. I've got cameras on my racers and coach whips during the day. But whenever I get back home, I look at everything when the lights are all off. They're always out doing their thing, and that is just super cool. You come back and this big sorry, I'm not cussing. Sorry, this big night snake here, excuse me, sprawled out on that rock background. It's just like it's doing its thing, and that's like super rewarding for me as the keeper. Just like, man, that is cool. That's how you'd see them in the wild,
Well, yeah, you're 2 steps ahead of yourself. You have like the day shift critters in your collection, and you have the night shift critters.
Yep. For sure. Yeah. Anyway, sorry for rambling, but yeah.
No,
well, that's kind of the point of the podcast.
I mean, that's kind of the point of our show. We're ramblers.
Yeah,
ramblers,
for sure.
Have you delved in with other lizards in the past?
I had that Chinese water dragon, which was a swing and a miss there.
Yeah.
I had some.
What a fall from grace those have had, right? I mean,
do what?
What a fall from grace those have had. Growing up, because we're all kind of in the same age class, relatively speaking, and they were super, super common when we were young, and now, not a dime a dozen anymore.
Well, they kind of earned it too. It's like they're not exactly the easiest thing to keep.
Right.
No, they're in the same vein as green iguanas, where they're not the best first lizard to begin with.
Yeah, they're in the same class as green iguanas in that old timers, or when we start having gray hair, we'll be like, oh, back in my day, we get them for $5 down at the dime store. I mean, they're absolute crap to keep, but we can get them for $5.
Yeah. I think
you young whippersnappers with your fancy, I don't know, whatever popular lizards is common in 30, 40 years. You have no idea what it was like for us.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, Connor, I'm not trying to impersonate you.
You're good. You're good.
I was just doing standard old folk in Mayberry.
No, this is how Nate is.
I've heard similar rambling for sure. Yeah. But yeah, as far as other lizards, I've kept some leopard lizards, the Gambelia wilsoni, and then I had a Gila monster that was like literally my favorite thing on the planet. That's one of those kind of
Dream
falls
animals.
from my
you know?
car wreck that I had to go. But I went to
Ah,
a trusted buddy in Central Texas, here not too far, Kobe, Derbyshire. He actually breeds California lyre snakes, which is great. And he's kind of getting into the Gilas, and he's got some snow prairie rattlesnakes that are super cool. But with a good guy that I trust, and he like calls me and gives me updates, on that lizard because he knows I like it so much. So it's cool.
That's
I do plan
best case scenario for sure.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want to call it networking, but expanding my social circle from social media has really helped me out quite a bit. And I don't know if you guys have different herp societies or herp clubs or whatever, but getting to meet people in this hobby, it's been great. It's done a lot for me, and I'm just happy seeing even animals that I've produced and sent to people, like getting updates on that. That's like super cool.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to say it seems like Central Texas kind of has not a stronghold, but a healthy herpetological society, right?
Yeah, there's the Central Texas Herp Society. They meet in San Antonio area. It's about a 4.5 hour drive for me, but I do it
Oh,
because it's
because
fun.
you're up north. Are you like in Dallas
Yeah,
or
I'm
Fort Worth?
Fort Worth area.
Okay.
Don't confuse it with Dallas because we're better than that. But anyway, yeah, I call it North Central Texas. So we're like south of the Oklahoma Red River border, like maybe 45 minutes to an hour or so. So not too far.
That's the closest society you have near you.
Yeah, yeah. There's the North Texas
relevant.
Reptile Society is kind of off and on.
Sure.
But there is UTA, the University of Texas at Arlington. They have a really nice herp lab with tons of records and stuff. If I find nice or preservable DORs, I'll send it to them, stuff like that. But being out of college, it's kind of tough to be the weird old guy that shows up to the college meetings, So.
Yeah, I mean, you're not old yet.
Yeah. The mustache,
You Nate a little bit, but just kidding.
Yeah.
yeah. You had to say that right on my first day of classes.
No. You're a chipper. You're a chipper young man, dude. So don't worry. But cool, man.
What are you talking about, chipper young man? I have back pain. I have crippling financial situations.
Hey, buddy, I wake up with knee pain too. Okay, we'll all get there eventually. But we did want to touch on a little bit of your zookeeping career. Obviously, what a wondrous opportunity you had with that. I was curious, were there any herp-centric, herp-related initiatives that you guys had, like maybe with?
Well, judging by the photos, I think there's one.
Yeah. Do you want to pull that one up?
Right here on my shirt. This is a shameless plug, Fulvius Apparel. If you don't know about it, look it up. Get a shirt. You have to. Just whatever. If you're cool, you have a shirt.
Bryant. If you're cool, you're wearing one of these shirts.
Okay, I get the message. I am not cool yet.
In the theme of this Croccast podcast, I am sporting the Gharial shirt here. Fort Worth Zoo, for those not familiar, whenever they built the Museum of Living Art, which is what our herpetarium's called, they specifically built one of the main water exhibits to house gharials, and a lot of zoos, at least the zoos that I visited that have gharials, most of them are they're like a shallower pond that they're kept in. And the Fort Worth Zoo, their pond is super deep, like deep enough for them to be vertical in the water and have 6 feet of space.
Awesome.
From their nose to the top of the water. Now, I don't know what the river looks like in Nepal and India where you find these crocs, excuse me. And I wasn't an influential part of this, so I might misspeak and don't hate me, things like that. But I figure something related to that is benefiting their, sexual reproduction. I don't know if they mate vertically or however that works. I'm not sure. I assume it's just kind of like any lizard would, kind of over the back there.
It probably probably gives them a little bit extra space for the whole whipping around, bending around underneath, and all that.
Things like that, for sure. Yeah. And then their beach has these like heat coils in it to where it's like at the proper temperature for, like they're not just going to lay their egg anywhere. They're gonna lay their eggs in this specific spot because we have built it up in this particular temperature, this particular humidity gradient, this specific spot where they're going to lay their eggs here every time. And they do. It's great. But the last 3 years, they have had successful hatchings of gharials. And prior to that, the only zoo that's done that outside of their native land is St. Augustine Alligator Farm. And they produced 1. Our first year, we hatched out 2. Last year, they did 3. And then this year, I think there was another 3. So 3 back-to-back years is insane. It's awesome. They've got a group of 1.3. So 3 females, 1 male. The big male is Big Boy. One of the females is Snaggletooth, and I forget the other 2. But they're great. They're all there's specific feeding times. You guys do go there where you can watch them. They're target trained to come up, and they'll individually feed off of like a big snake tongue, which is super cool. Just beautiful snakes or crocodilians. Sorry, beautiful crocodilians. Sorry, I'm holding a snake, looking at a snake. Sorry. But outside of that, we do a lot with the Texas native projects as well. So we have some endemic species that we work with: the Austin blind salamander, the Texas horn lizard. Not necessarily endemic, but that is a native project we're working on, or they are working on, excuse me, since I'm kind of removed as of the last year and a half or so. We also do Texas horn lizards, Houston toads, Louisiana pine snakes, Texas kangaroo rats are underneath our umbrella as well, which is pretty cool. And Pecos pupfish, yeah, right there. The Pecos pupfish, for those not familiar, they are native to West Texas, the Trans-Pecos region, and they live in like 3 or 4 of these like little shallow like divots in these rocks. They're like it's a freshwater fish, but it's got a higher salinity, so it makes them pretty unique. And just because they're isolated in these specific areas, they're an at-risk species. So we got a pretty that's the majority of our aquatic conservation effort.
And they're kind of a boom and bust species, right? Because those little pools they inhabit are ephemeral, right? Like they dry up. Part of the year, and then they come back.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know if they make it to like an aquifer or something underground or something. I don't know, but they're super cool little fish that I had no clue existed. And there's like each like little divot or pool has their own species or subspecies or something like that. So
that's wicked.
It's pretty cool, and there's a lot of cooperation with landowners, and that is like a big key to our success with that stuff there. That next picture, that's a Anegada land or rock iguana. It's Cyclura something, but Anegada is the island they're from. That particular animal was produced at the San Diego Zoo, and one of the keepers that was really influential in that breeding process came to Fort Worth with those animals that were produced from that. That I believe is a male that we have on exhibit, but the remainder of those captive bred animals are now at Ty Park's Iguana Land. Which another place you guys should go check out if you haven't been. Really personable lizard. I'm just kind of coming up with the big bob head, as I'm coming up with the salad, things like that. And in this role here, I guess I started at the Fort Worth Zoo as Louisiana pine snake keeper. Just scrolling through Facebook, saw an ad for it and just applied, and that was that. We're one of 4 hubs in the U.S. That U.S. Fish and Wildlife trusts with their animals. Apparently, all these Louisiana pine snakes that are breeding for release, things like that, those are all owned by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and they've consolidated to these 4 centers for captive breeding. At the time that I was there, there was 68 individual animals, so quite a lot of pairs of snakes there. And the year that I was in charge of the program, we produced 83 animals for release, which was the most that year. And those numbers have gone up every year. Louisiana pine snakes, they're at risk from habitat stratification. Is that the right word? Where it kind of like breaks up their habitat through like roads and stuff like that.
Like fragmentation, degradation, something like that.
Sorry, yeah. Fragmentation there, excuse me, habitat fragmentation. They also have pretty low fertility. So we actually have a amphibian and reptile reproductive position where they're working with, Houston toads, Louisiana pine snakes, and Texas horn lizards for now, as far as like artificial insemination, getting the most diverse genes out there with the strongest adults, things like that. So that is something super cool happening behind the scenes. That if you walk into the MOLA, they have a big window where you can see her full lab, and like she's working on really cool things every single day. It's wild. Allison's doing a great job there.
Well, I think that's one of the things that made headlines in the zoological world, right? I think a couple months ago or even last year that these were like the first snakes to do that with artificial insemination.
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
It's pretty wild to think about. We're at a place where we have advanced technique and technology to do that with snakes.
For sure. Yeah, and
because they don't make it easy. They don't make it easily accessible. I'll tell you what.
For sure. Yeah, and I don't know what the gene pool looks like. I mean, we've got a computer system that uses not really. I don't know if it's AI. Could be AI. Whatever. But there's some sort of computer program that they use to every year shuffle the breeder pairs around and figure out we're going to breed this one animal to this one animal to get the most diverse, or to continue producing the most diverse animals that we can into the wild. So I'm not sure what that gene pool looks like really across the board, but if we can do AI or artificial insemination, for this species, that's going to be good, because you can transport that semen to other institutions for a healthier population in captivity.
Yeah,
Hey,
well, my bad. When you sent this photo, I thought, oh, you work with Kentucky pines too. It's like, wow, but no, this is even cooler in my opinion. I love Louisiana pines. They're awesome, beautiful snakes.
Yeah, they have quite the attitude to them, and
sure.
They in their breeding diet, because they have a separate breeding diet and a separate post brumation diet there. But they would be like, I'll probably never keep a Pituovis again, because I was like pulling out fist-sized turds. I'm not lying. It was wild, man.
I have gopher snakes that are a fraction of that size, and I can believe you.
Yeah, it's insane. Have water bowls dumped every day. So anyway, yeah. So from the Louisiana pine snake position, I was promoted to, after my West Texas trip, I was promoted to a position called the swing keeper, where you're kind of a fill-in across the entire department. You're working with animals that maybe don't have coverage because of somebody's sick day or just their day off for the week or something like that. You get to work with my favorite lizard on the planet, San Esteban chuckwalla. There's a pair there. Beautiful, beautiful lizards. Another lizard species that I would really be interested in keeping at some point. I just got to find someone in my state that works with them. There's a lot of old school people that still keep.
Are they bigger than like the mainland chuckwallas, Connor?
It's kind of a example of island gigantism, like those Galapagos tortoises. Yeah. They like almost 2.5, approaching 3 foot as adults.
Yeah, they look almost like black spiny iguanas, almost like the similar size.
Yeah, their head is that similar size for sure. Yeah, big bulky boxy head. But yeah, I got to work with it really expand my my herper knowledge, just because day to day I'm a colubrid guy, but I'm working with everything across the department outside of venomous, all sorts of lizards, monitors, mainly just feeding and tracking, temperatures and things like that. Helping out a little bit in the like the incubation systems and stuff like that, doing maintenance there. But it was really, really cool to get acquainted with some species that you don't normally see. Chinese crocodile lizards, I don't really come across Leachianus lizards around here too much, but those Leachianus geckos are gigantic. Basilisks. They have a big what they call the flooded forest exhibit, which is a super cool multi-species enclosure that's floor to ceiling. It's got about 3.5 to 4 foot of standing water in there. But you've got caiman lizards, basilisks, all sorts of turtles, some freshwater stingrays. Really cool mixed species exhibit with some amphibians in there too. But just getting to see that every single day was something I'll never take for granted. It's insane.
I mean, I love me a good South American mixed exhibit. That sounds awesome.
Sure. Yeah. But just unfortunately, financial stuff happens. So it wasn't a way that I could really keep my home zoo going and my love of the zoo field going, and still I was working a restaurant job on the side of that. Restaurant job I was doing quite a bit better, so I decided to settle for my personal collection here that I was really gung ho and really stemming towards.
Hey man, stuff we all been there. When it comes to passion, sadly, you just can't have passion in all sectors of your life. It's just
Sure.
Life doesn't work like that for the most part. But
Sure.
what a great opportunity. And I wanted to not derail us, but have you gone to any of the herp shows? The herp reptile expos?
Yeah. So expos around here in the Fort Worth area, there's the Herps Conroe Expo. If you're looking for specifically the Herps expos, I've been to that one a few times. It's about 4-hour drive there. But we get NARBC Dallas Expo twice a year. We got some smaller local shows like Lone Star Reptile Expo. There's the Queenie Expo, and I'll go to those. I'm not really. I mean, I go to those for the social aspect for the most part.
Sure.
Very rarely will I see something that I can pair up with what I have here, and yeah. So I mean, it's just a good time to hang out and just kind of network there as well. I got those rough breeding snacks at the NARBC Dallas Fall Expo a while back. Like I said, they've been here a decent amount of time, so that's kind of the last expo pickup that I've brought in. But I'm always kind of nervous about the volume of those animals from I don't know the
backstory. I mean, you just don't know, mites, stuff like that. I'm sure that's kind of what you're
I
alluding
mean,
to.
there could
You just
be
don't know.
things you don't see. I mean, mites are obvious there, but crypto really scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if there's if there's a snake sitting there for a couple of days, it could develop an RI. Depending on its needs. And that's just I'm selective. About what I bring from those expos. And I got to be getting it from somebody that I trust and that I know.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can meet so many kinds of characters at expos. Some that you never want to meet again, and then some become your best buddies or contact, that sort of a deal.
I do think that ultimately those shows are good, for the hobby though, for the most part. So, yeah.
I agree, because obviously, like I said, we have the NRBC here out in Tinley Park, and unfortunately, not everyone gets vetted correctly, in my opinion, but it's still a net positive to the hobby, because I mean, there's just fantastic shows, and overall, most of the vendors are fantastic people.
Right.
So yeah, Venomous never caught your attention?
Yes, particularly the price eye, which they're protected, so I'm not going to keep those. I do relocations. There's a Facebook group called Free Snake Relocation Directory. If you're comfortable with that kind of thing, I would highly recommend making your services available so people kill less snakes. But basically, you get a call, whatever you go out there, you do it for free, and if you have a spot to release it, do that. So I mean, I'll come across Venomous there. Like I said, I grew up in Boy Scouts, and I staffed for a number of years this camp called Worth Ranch out in Palo Pinto County, and that particular county is pretty interesting. But working out there for a summer for a couple of years, you come across a variety of different things. The copperheads are beautiful out there. Atrox, they're Atrox, your Western Diamondback rattlesnakes. But what's really neat is the volume of coral snakes that I would find there. There's only like 1 or 2 scientific records for that county, and they're from like the 1920s when people were first getting out there and stuff. So through the camp, there's this dry riverbed full of cedar elm leaves. I'm not sure if that's important or not, but it's a really small, really dry leaf. And there's all these little crawfish holes in it and stuff, because periodically you'll get rain and stuff and it'll flood stuff. But right after those rains or right before the rains, there's stuff cruising around. And there's been some summers where I've come across 7 coral snakes from this particular area. And it's just really cool and neat. There's a great variety of herps out there. But for me, keeping venomous is not something that I want to do right now. Not because I don't think I could do it. It's just not like something that I don't really want to take a risk. I don't have snakes get out very regularly. I've had snakes get out in the past, but I appreciate seeing them in the wild, and I think I'm just going to keep it that way. The Gila monster was great, and I would like to get another Gila monster at some point, but that's kind of a different thing.
Well, it's good you have the self-awareness to not hold yourself back, but to just pause, because we all get the menagerie bug,
right?
And some of us act more impulsively than others, but you don't want to burden yourself with keeping more than you should at the moment. So I mean, it's good to be aware like that.
Yeah, in Texas, a venomous snake license is like $20. You can get that at Walmart or a sports goods store. And that's the only vetting that they have. There are city and county ordinance, but there's not people that are coming and checking out your collection like that in Florida. So there's a lot of people that keep stuff that they probably shouldn't. And a couple of years ago, there was a guy that had a forest cobra get out like an hour from my house. Oof. That's not a good light, No. Thankfully, nobody really created some sort of reptile restrictions based off that incident. I'd like to see, just like, you have to have some sort of mentorship program or something like that. I don't want to limit what people can keep, because then that will also limit me at some point, because like, when would they stop, like, where are they stopping? But if there was some sort of, like, before I got my Gila monster, I mentored with Stu Tennyson, who's basically next door, about 5 minutes. I mentored with him for 6 months before I got my Gila monster, making sure it was something that like I could do reasonably, and it was something that not just that I could do, but that like owning one would be engaging enough to me to have one, because I wouldn't just want to rehome it after a month or two if I got bored, is the wrong word, but if it wasn't keeping me, engaged, it's a venomous animal. It's not good if you send it to somebody and that person gets bit or something, and then it falls back on you, or whatever, So
I mean, yeah, basically, if you didn't withstand putting in the work, you can't withstand owning the animal. You don't deserve the animal. I'm in accordance with you. People should be able to keep what kind of herps they want within reason, but there should be policy in place, because, and I hear this from other podcast platforms where they keep saying there needs to be aspirations of policing ourselves, but you see the same bullshit nonsense over and over, and it's like, well, are we really doing a good job of that?
Right. Yeah. There's just, there are some ends of the spectrum, that are worse than others, and cult followings, which we all know. That's a shame. I wish that it's just people, it's tough to get everybody, regardless of what the issue is, it's tough to get everybody on the same page. So
yeah, it's tough, especially when a lot of these people have bigger followings than we would ever imagine
for sure.
So
for sure, yeah.
But it's not a losing battle, so I'm still hopeful.
Yeah.
This. So I think we are going to start to wind down, Connor, and it's been a blast having you on board. But before we do, I did want to touch on a little bit of your South Texas herping. It was that one of your more recent outings you've had, when herping Texas?
Yeah. So as far as like trips, that's probably the most recent. I do frequent Central Texas for the Brazos water snake, which is a threatened species and an endemic species as well. That's
Yeah.
really well known. Just because I enjoy the seeing those guys. But as far as South Texas is concerned, I actually sold some rubber boas to a guy in Ohio. He's Chris Dietrich, who you guys probably have met at Fest or something like that. He does a lot of hognose.
I think so. I've heard the name before.
That's very familiar.
I think I know who it is. I think I met him back talking a little bit at Fest.
Super cool. Herps all over. He's a lawyer, so he's more able than I am, financially for that kind of thing, I assume. But
he actually went to college for a good degree.
Yeah. But anyway, I sold him those rubber boas, and he was like, "Oh, you're in Texas, right?" Blah blah blah. And asking me about different herping that I've done around the area, and I'm like, it'd be super cool. You're a neat dude. I've enjoyed conversing with you. It'd be cool to meet up sometime and do a little herping. And he reached out about a South Texas trip he was doing, and it just lined up to where, I could take a few days and just rocket run down there. I ended up spending 3 days down in South Texas in Cameron County, in particular, Brownsville area there. We had I really wanted to see a speckled racer, because that's another thing that I can't keep here in Texas, regardless of where they're imported from, just because they have such a small range in Texas. Didn't see that, but we found some indigos, which was super cool. This adult male here ended up getting actually collected for an education purpose. He went to a Texas Parks and Wildlife educator who they had one that passed, and they just were looking for another educational animal for their hunting snake education talks they do for like deer hunters and stuff like that. But anyway, that snake was the cream of the crop. He was on the smaller side.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful snake. We found some larger animals that, have you all been to South Texas before and come across indigos?
Yeah, I have personally back in 2021.
Yeah, they're just beat up, all the adults. This male here, you can see the nipped tail.
Yeah,
of course,
cool.
that back end there. But the amount of falcon, raptors and all sorts of stuff like that out there is insane. And this particular male, there's a video that you can find on my Instagram of me releasing that guy. But he had a flap of skin that had healed underneath, but it was still like the actual scales were flapping kind of on the animal itself. But they're absolute monsters. They're gentle giants, I should say. If you have handled dry marking before, you know what you're getting into. There's certain not like personalities or whatever, but you can tell when they're not in the mood. You got to give them that kind of upper third of distance to kind of be free and roam there, but give them some space, loose holes and stuff like that. But it was just such an insane opportunity to come across a big thriving indigo like that had seen some stuff, but despite that was just living.
Docile as can be, right? They have such polarizing, what would you say, personalities, to where most human interactions, they're pretty docile and calm, and then say if it was on like a scent trail or a caught wind of prey, then it's a really different animal, almost a apex predator type of deal.
Yeah, you can see. You can look up videos of these guys. If you haven't seen any of the dry Martian in person, their jaws are just so powerful, and you can feel their weight, and they're insane snakes. But you can see videos of them just absolutely, when they are hunting, they'll grab a prey and then they'll just beat it to literally beat it to death, and it's insane. Eating rattlesnakes, eating rabbits, whatever.
Exactly. The Diamondback destroyers.
Yeah, for sure. But also on this trip, we came across a Ruthven's whip snake, which was super fun for me. I don't think I sent you that photo because it was in shed, and some other cool stuff. The Christian stayed out longer than me. That's a the Coney Imperialis or something, but they're a black striped snake.
Cool.
Beautiful fossorial snake that it primarily eats amphibian prey, little frogs like.
Yeah, it's an itty bitty one, huh?
Yeah, they can get decent size. I mean, probably not over a foot, but they can get some girth to them. They have this really striking underbelly that's like a red orange.
Yeah.
That's another snake species that is protected in Texas, so I can't pick it up or show a photo of me picking it up, but that is a wonderful snake that I just rolled a palm trunk over and found it, just looking for, I don't know what would be there, but that was a really cool snake to see.
They're another, my bad to cut in, but they're another genre that I think they have a pretty bad bite if they manage to get you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. They are rear fanged and kind of more like the Texas ringneck version, I'd kind of say, for them there. But I don't know. There hasn't been really too many records of that there, but I wouldn't be surprised for sure. But if you guys do get to Herp, South Texas, the Sable Palm Sanctuary, we got a lot of hiking trails and stuff. Stay on the trails, don't mess anything up. But getting down there is it's like you're walking through Jurassic Park. It's beautiful. And you find a lot of stuff just crawling out everywhere. So, yeah.
Definitely keep that in the back of my mind if I ever make it to South Texas.
It's a treasure trove region for sure. We got to do it, Nate. We got to do it.
We'll see in the next couple of years how we can organize things.
Jeez, man. Hold on, Connor. I'm on my way. Don't worry.
Come on, yeah. Yeah, I really wanted to see a Mexican racer down there as well, the Caliber Oaxaca. That was kind of like a yellow belly, just a little different characteristics and stuff. But next time.
We could talk off air. I seen one. I'll tell you where I seen it. But
sure.
Yeah, again, my man, it was a pleasure to have you on. We did have one final question that we like to ask all guests, and you could take it away, Nate, if you want.
Okay. Anywhere in either the United States or the entire world, what's one place you want to go herping?
Wow. Man. I'm sure everybody says Australia. Australia would be great, especially the Margaret River area, southeastern Australia. It's a big wine country, but there's a lot of cool varanids there. My girlfriend's a sommelier, so I could do it like a double, trip, take her with me and have a good time, make fun out of it. And then the Pacific Northwest, rosy rubber bubbas, I got to see those coastal salamanders, all sorts of fun stuff, so those two.
Tell me again, what region in Australia you're curious?
The Margaret River area. It's like a big winery area, specifically for Shiraz grapes. And it would be an educational opportunity for me to enjoy some wine, but also have fun with all the fun, varanids that are over there. And there's some larger, I don't know what cobra species are down there, but there was a guest that came into my restaurant was telling me all about it.
I'm guessing probably tiger snakes, maybe red belly blacks.
I don't even know. I'm not familiar with U.S. stuff. I'm great with, but outside of that, I'm pretty limited. I just got to be more knowledgeable.
Well, definitely would be magical land of Oz for sure.
Yeah, outside the U.S., you're like, ooh, got to make sure before I pick it up.
Yep. Yeah.
Don't want to be the next poster card for dumb tourists gets whacked by local wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
Dumb Yankee. Yeah.
They stupid Yanks that don't know they don't know a carpet python from a tiger snake.
Oh.
I'm surprised they even know how to handle their nukes.
Good impression, Nate. Very, very good.
Thank you, mate.
Oh. But yeah, yet again, this was a blast, Connor. I know we both have enjoyed it, and I'm sure the Ramblers will as well. So, I mean, with that, we'll catch you for some more reptile ramblings, and then I'm your co-host, Bryant, and as always, joined by the illustrious Nate.
Until next time, folks. Signing off.
We'll see ya. But yeah, with the Mexican racer.